Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Elder Quest, to our monthly potpourri lecture series. I'm David Wilson, and I'm not live. Well, I am live, but I'm in my own house sending this to you by Zoom. If you look on your screen, you can see that we have a rolling marquee of the upcoming events. And so we just want to make sure that everybody knows what's happening. The big thing for everybody to remember as we get started with all of our classes this week is if you are planning to attend our luncheon that's coming up in February, you need to get a hold of Nancy Jeffries. You can see her email address right there and her phone number. You need to let her know to make reservations. If you don't make reservations, we can't promise that there'll be food for you. So please do that to make Nancy's life very easy and enjoyable. I have the opportunity to introduce our speaker today. This is Casey Finlinson. And I'm just going to do a brief little bio on him. Yes, we did a Google stalking of you, Casey, so just be aware of that. Casey Finlandson graduated from Utah State University with a certificate in ornamental horticulture and a bachelor's in landscape architecture and environmental planning. He's worked on designs for public lands in southern Utah, as well as residential landscapes along the Wasatch Front. Currently, he works for the Central Utah Water Conservation District and used to manage their ornamental gardens. But right now he is one of our lecture series, and we want to welcome Casey and appreciate your willingness to help us out to understand water conservation in the state of Utah. Take it away, Casey. It's all yours, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm glad to know that I'm being stalked on the internet. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I don't know how many of you have been to our former garden on University Parkway in Orem, but if you didn't know, we moved 3 years ago and we don't own that property anymore. So we're now at the mouth of Provo Canyon, and maybe some of you don't even know who we are. We mean Central Utah Water Conservancy District. And today we're talking about water conservation in Utah. And you can see down that line that says converting to water efficient landscapes. That's really what we focus on, and I'll explain that as we go along. But I am, as you may have heard from my bio, I am a plant nerd. That's my passion in life is plants and horticulture. And now I'm working on some of the water conservation programs that we run that we'll talk about towards the end of this discussion. So who is Central Utah Water? I'm not going to go over each of these, but just know that we're basically we're a political subdivision of the state of Utah that delivers water to parts of 8 counties. So we serve lots of people, but we don't have any retail customers. So none of you buy water directly from us. It's to the municipalities, cities and other water agencies who purchase that water from us, and then we'll sell it out to you. So I grew up in Orem. I didn't know who Central Utah Water Conservancy District was because we weren't paying a water bill to them. Anyway, so it's okay if you don't know who we are, but now you do, and we're there, and we play a big part of people's lives. Here's the counties that we cover. You can see just a little portion of Summit County and Juab County for the most part there. But you can see that area. We've got 3 water treatment plants. One is right here in Orem, and one's in Duchesne, and the other one is in Vernal. We're also looking at another water treatment plant in South Utah County, probably within like the next 10 years as the county continues to grow. So this is a complicated map, but just to kind of show you kind of portion of what we do. And I know it's a little confusing, but just know that that green line in the middle, the basin divide there, everything to the right of that kind of falls to the right, and the water to the left of that is going to the left. But we also have everything connected with pipes and tunnels. So you can see that even from Strawberry Reservoir, we could bring water and dump it into the Provo River as needed, that type of thing. So I've got a simplified version of this, of the Provo River side of it. Originally made for kids, but it kind of helps everybody see better. Basically, the small reservoirs up in the mountains that feed into the Jordanelle, which feeds into Deer Creek, continues down the Provo River, and then we're pulling water off at the Olmsted diversion and send that to our water treatment plant in Orem, and eventually that makes it to people's homes. So I've got some live pictures of, not live, but some real life pictures, I guess, what that looks like. Here's Jordanelle. You can see the top of the dam there. There's what it looks like from the sky. And a picture of Deer Creek right there. And it comes down. There's the Olmsted diversion. And these pictures are a little old, but you can see the Provo Canyon Trail right next to that diversion. So if you've been on the trail, or even if you've been on that in the road in Provo Canyon, you've gone right past this, and maybe you didn't know what it was, or it wasn't very visible from the road anymore, but that's where we're pulling the water off to send to our water treatment plant. And when I was a kid growing up, the pipeline you could actually see going the length of the canyon, and it was green, and we called it the green snake. I don't know if anybody else called it that, but it's mostly hidden now, and it's not so green, but it's still there. And then sends it to our water treatment plant. Again, this photo is a little bit old, but you can see the Orem Cemetery. I don't know if you can see my cursor. Does that show up?
Yes.
Okay, so there's the Orem Cemetery there. These are the old WordPerfect buildings right there. So we're just up the hill from there. And here's a more modern picture, since it was upgraded a few years ago and services even more of the population. Okay, so that's who Central Utah Water is. Now I'm going to kind of go back to the drought, the water conservation aspect of all of this. And this quote is, almost 20 years old, but it's still very fitting, meaning that the drought is not a new thing to us here in Utah. Like, it happens all the time. Some years we get lots of precipitation, some years we just don't. But what's different right now is that our population is bigger than it's ever been. And so there's a greater demand for the water. So you can see each elbow on this red line just shows the amount of precipitation in a given year. You can see how that fluctuates. It's very different from year to year. And then that blue line just shows kind of a 30-year average. And notice that it has kind of a downward trend. So there's a slight decrease in the amount of water over an average period. I mean, not so much to be alarmed about, but you can just see how it's bouncing around. We never know how much water we're going to get. What's that? Is somebody asking a question? Oh, maybe you didn't know your mute was taken off. Okay, our population, however, is not doing that. It's steadily going up. It's escalating like crazy. And so that's the challenge that we're facing right now. So when there is a drought, it's a little bit trickier to make sure there's enough water to go around for everybody. And our population is estimated to be about 3.34 million right now. By 2060, which is not even 40 years from now, we're expected to be around 6 million. So that's what we're planning for, and that's what we're trying to make sure that there's going to be enough water to support those 6 million people. So basically, we've been sipping out of our own cup, enjoying it, having all the water we want. But now all of a sudden, there's all these other straws stuck in the cup and a lot more people drinking out of it. So we have to be careful with what we do with our water. And this graph from Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District just kind of shows, like, we've been okay. If you look at the yellow, our current water supply has been enough to sustain us so far. But if we continue to get years like this past year, that could go quickly. But to sustain the future growth, we need to do something, and it's not, conservation won't do it all for us. We need to find more water supplies as well, but conservation is a big part of that. and it's the cheapest water we can invest in because it's already there. We just have to not use so much. Now this map shows two things. One, you see the percentage there in Utah. That's the percentage of growth. So as of 2015, we're one of the higher, faster growing states. And then you can see that we're a darker blue. We're one of the highest water users as well. That's in gallons per day per person. So saying that each person throughout the state uses more water in general, on average, than in some of the other states. Now, granted, this isn't exactly fair because there's no standard as to reporting, so not every state reports the numbers the same, but regardless, we know that we can do better. And we know that we need to. So this is as of January 18th of this year. This is the US Drought Monitor for Utah. And you can see the numbers showing, you know, that our snowpack is fine, but just remember that we're still in a drought. Like there's snow up there, but it's going to melt fast. So we want more, we need more. And there's nothing we can do about that, of course, but just be aware that we're still in a drought. And I had mentioned earlier before the class started, like, yeah, it snowed today, but do you see any snow on the ground? It just doesn't very much. So the state has put together some regional water conservation goals. Probably, I'm guessing most of you are from the Utah County area. So you can look at the Provo River region there. That's the one that covers us. And these, so this is gallons per capita per day, same thing as what that other map showed. But the state has made goals for each of these regions to use less water. So this is 20%. So the number, the baseline is 2015. There's a number there. Provo River was 222. And by 2030, they're hoping to get us down to 179 gallons per capita per day. And then by 2040, even lower, and 2065, even lower. So you can see that there's aggressive water conservation goals there. And where are we going to target? Well, I already kind of talked about this, but our outdoor landscapes, of course. So this chart represents residential water use, and this is from 2006, but it really hasn't changed a whole lot. 60 to 70% of our residential water use is going outdoors to our landscapes. Now, just remember that I am a plant nerd. I do like plants. I'm not saying to go just throw rock everywhere and a cactus here or there and a cow skull. We're still talking about plants. We're just maybe not so much grass. And of course, all of our water doesn't go to residents. So this is we're not talking about agriculture today, but this is the public system water use. So of course, there's some in industrial, commercial, institutional, and these graphs come off of USU Seawell's website. But you can see that even with all the industrial, commercial, institutional, combined with the residential, we're still 64% going outdoors. So we've created some programs for residents, but also for these commercial, institutional, industrial uses as well. So what I want to do first is to go over some of the projects that we've been doing, some landscape conversions on our own properties, because as a water district, we've got several properties throughout these different counties. First, I want to talk about the Duchesne Field Office, and then right here at our headquarters in Orem that we've been in for several years, for 3 years now. So Duchesne Field Office, and this is a before shot. You can see they did have some rocks, non-lawn areas right there, but as I show you in overhead, you'll see that there was a lot of grass there, 25,000 square feet that took a lot of water during the summer. And believe it or not, even the water district has to pay a water bill to the city for using water. So we were getting really high water bills at this office because of all that grass. And as a side note, they had a lot of flooding in that area during downpours, and it was kind of designed that way. I'll show you that. So we were supposed to help out with that as well. So here's the overhead. You can see all the grass that they had there. And let me use my cursor again. So up in the top left corner, there's a culvert that dropped water out during these flood events and sent it down here. It was designed to do that. And there was a curb cut here and made it go down to the next property. And that was on purpose, but it sure made a messy situation. Plus right here in this area, it would always flood. You can see that there was recently a flood. There's still some water and a lot of sediment in there. So the goal of this was to reduce the amount of lawn. They wanted to use attractive water efficient plants. And the employees there in Duchesne wanted to use multiple rock types to cover the ground. And then of course we needed to create drainage for that storm water. So here's what it looks like during a storm, you know, flooding their property, which they didn't really like. So here's the plan I came up with for this property: reduce the lawn significantly. And if you go onto Google Maps now, this is what it looks like. So this project was done May of 2020. So this hasn't been updated since then, but you can see how they've been putting in rocks, and we still kept some lawn around the building. But you can see this is just going to be the lawn here. So we reduce that significantly, and then also down on the south part there. So there's what it looked like before, you know, just a nice lawn, but it wasn't used for anything. And there's what it looked like afterwards. Just another shot of it there. And there it is again. And now to look at our field here without water in it. So that's what it looked like beforehand. And then you can see this channel that we created to bring that water through. The property just south of that has a straight channel, very engineered. This one it's engineered as well, but we tried to curve it, make it a little more exciting, a little more naturalistic, if you can call concrete naturalistic. Anyway, just to kind of show what we did. And everything's still small, so things will mature and fill in a little bit. We actually had somebody come in and dig up some of the shrubs one night, and they caught them on camera, but for some reason they never caught the person. And I thought everybody knew everybody in Duchesne. How do you get away with that? But somebody did. Guess it's too much to pay $20 for a shrub. Just go dig it up from the government. Anyway, some fun color, kind of cool, a little more exciting than just grass. Maybe it does look drier. And of course the rock will be a little hotter than just lawn, but as plants mature, hopefully they'll help kind of cool that off a little bit. And then in the back, there's that grass area there that's been reduced. And then on the side, they had this very Duchesne-esque wall. That was kind of a problem for them because water just would roll down the hill and seep through that wall, and that's what's creating all the sediment through their parking lot. So they did improve that, and hopefully that wall has got some seepage somewhere, so it's not gonna fall apart or anything, but looks a lot better. So results of this, remember we started with 25,000 square feet of lawn, reduced that to 5,400, so we took out 70% of that original lawn. We've estimated that that's saving 437,000 gallons a year. And that first year, the water bill was reduced by 90%. Like that's a huge deal. And just as an FYI, a quote by a contractor to do the work would have been about $85,000, and that was too much for us. And so we did the work in-house and saved ourselves $60,000. Okay, so this is our headquarter office in Orem, where we moved to 3 years ago. And when we first moved here, I was asked to kind of look and see what areas. There's a lot of grass here. So this is an existing office building, just had lots of grass. And the first thing I wanted a shed. There was a piece of grass in this area, about 3,000 square feet, that had a concrete pad already in the middle of it. And the sprinklers were watering it as if it was all grass. So needlessly watering this concrete pad. The lawn wasn't being used, but it had mature trees in it that we wanted to keep. So that's kind of setting up for this particular area. And that's what that looked like. So we went ahead and built a shed on there. I mean, I don't know what this was used for in the past, but it made a perfect area for our shed. We removed all the lawn, and we didn't want those sprinklers spraying our shed, obviously. And we converted the sprinklers to drip. And we did take a few of the plants from our former garden site, not very many. We also moved our grow boxes, our vegetable boxes that we had. So you'll see those in these pictures here. So here's our site there, and then that part in the red, that's where I'm talking about. So that was one sprinkler zone that we just said, okay, convert this all to drip, and we'll just put some plants here. Does somebody have a question? Okay. I guess we didn't address how we're going to answer questions, but I guess we can leave them towards the end, or if someone's got a burning question right away, we could answer that. But I haven't been monitoring the chat tab. Maybe that's what Dave is doing. Okay, so here's that area right here. That was kind of the plan I put together for that. So before shot, and we put a shed on there with a porch, and all of a sudden it looks like this cabin in the mountains or something with those spruce trees right there. It's really nice. And we had to carefully remove the sod. It's scary around mature trees like this. You can see the sod just piling up. And kind of messy. And then we tilled in a bunch of compost and tried to improve the soil before we planted anything in there. And there's kind of our finished grade. You can see that we pulled the soil about 3 inches down below grade of the concrete, because our plan was to put 3 inches of mulch on top of that. So that's what we did there. Cap the sprinklers. That's my knee right there. That's to prove, I guess it doesn't really prove anything to anybody, but I was actually doing the work there. So just so you know, I don't just talk about it, I actually do it. I wasn't driving the machinery there. That I don't do that kind of stuff, but I can cap a sprinkler and install drip. So here's the designated area for the grow boxes, and you can see towards the back of the image here, we had to dig a trench to bring in a irrigation line for those grow boxes. And then here they are put in place. So if you've ever been to our old garden, these are the very same boxes. We had 5 of them there, and we brought probably 3.5 of them with us. So they were kind of rotten on the bottom. So we cut up one of them to fix some of the parts to it. And the other one we just left over there. So here's some of the plants that came from the garden, as well as some that we just bought specifically for this. And then we're laying down the pavers there to kind of figure out where they're going to go. Installing steel edging and installing the drip there. And then putting the pavers down in their final resting place. And there's our grow boxes with this decomposed granite that we put around those. And we lay down the mulch. And again, everything is really little when you first plant it, but things do grow and look better. But it looks really nice to have a fresh coat of mulch down in there. Another shot of it there. And this is fun for me. I don't know how into all this stuff you guys are, but I like to kind of see the befores and afters and all the work that goes into creating a landscape. So we planted, I think it was around 1,000 daffodil bulbs here. Those pop up in the spring. Oddly enough, this year's been, I guess because it's been so dry, or maybe we got such a wet October and then nice weather, our daffodils have been starting poking out of the ground since November. They're not very far, just the leaves, no flowers yet. But I looked at them today and they're just waiting for warm temperatures again. But they're still happy poking out of the ground there. We couldn't do any tulips because there's deer here and they would eat all the tulips, but they stay away from daffodils. So there's some summer color. You can see our grow boxes with actual plants in them. Anyway, just some more shots of that area. So how did we do here? Remember, we had about 3,000 square feet of lawn. Reduced that to 0 square feet of lawn. So our estimated water savings is 77,000 gallons a year. And I had to do a cost estimate beforehand, so that's what I came up with. It ended up costing a little bit more than that, but we did all the work in-house again. Okay, and then we've got another project here that we're still doing at our headquarter building. Our parking lot, which is really nice. Our parking lot has some islands with trees in them, and that's something we didn't have at our parking lot in our old building. So I really like the shade that these trees provide, but they also had lawns in them. You know, some of these are just 5 feet wide and giving everybody a free car wash. Well, okay, not really, because we water at night, but you know, we had all this grass that really wasn't usable and hard to water. So in this, you can kind of see, let me grab the cursor again. So these are the types of areas I'm talking about, just kind of with trees in the middle of the parking lot. But you can also see there are lawns in there too, and it just doesn't make sense to have lawns there. So this one, we've broken it up into phases. And it's not just rock, we're actually putting plants back into these as well. So you can see our phases here. And this we did this past summer. So we did phase 1 and phase 2. And then I'm hoping to do phases 3, 4, and 5 this coming summer. So there's a shot of one. You can see how happy and healthy the grass was too. Probably because we weren't giving it the amount of water that the former owner was giving it. But we also knew we were going to be tearing it out. So then we ripped that out, put in plants and some drip irrigation. And then I realized I didn't have like a finished picture of that same shot. So I just went out yesterday. This is yesterday, and it's kind of doesn't look good in that lighting, but the rock has more color to it is what I'm seeing. So I threw one of these in of a different bed, but anyway, so that's, again, everything is really little, but these plants are going to fill in and the rock will not be so in your face. It will look more like a planting bed instead of a rock bed. And then these long, skinny, five foot wide strips here. This is what we did to those. So we put a few walkways in between there because people do need to walk through there. Put some tall grasses in the middle because, as you can see, people back into them. So I had to put the tall stuff right in the middle and then short stuff on the edges there. And that'll give us some blue color in the spring and then blue color throughout the summer and fall. And I did that on purpose just as a blue to represent water, and we're the water district. Anyway, so there's another one of those, and then what that looked like afterwards. So, I mean, it's not a demonstration garden by any means, but you're welcome to come check it out and see it in person if you ever want to. Okay, so here's the estimated cost. I don't have the final cost on that because we're not done with it yet. but estimated water savings is 134,000 gallons a year. And hoping to finish this project up this fall, but then we have lots more areas that I get to convert here. Okay, so those are kind of our example projects. And now I want to talk to you about what we're doing to encourage other people to do similar projects like that. So we have this landscape leadership grant program I'll talk about first. This is to encourage builders, developers, businesses, even HOAs of like that have any like common areas, an apartment building or something like that, cities, school districts. Anyway, this is for them. It's called landscape leadership. And each project is given a score based on a bunch of criteria, but basically the higher, more visible this is, the higher of score it's going to get, because we want to show leadership. We want different businesses and organizations to get out there and do a really nice landscape and be a good example that others will want to copy. And so we'll help fund that. Again, these properties have to be located within our service area. And funding could be up to half of the project cost. I haven't ever seen it go that high before, and up to $100,000, and I haven't seen that before either. But again, that I kind of already said what the funding is based off of, what our scoring criteria is based off of. And by the way, this is another shot of a building at Wasatch Academy. I have several of those in here, but I'm not going to go over all the guidelines, but basically there are specific guidelines that you need to follow in order to qualify for this. Just because we want to guide people to do it the way that we see fit. That makes sense. So restricting the amount of turf grass and those kinds of things. Okay, so I don't know everybody's situation here, but if you know somebody or are interested in this or own some kind of large property, there's the website there, cuwc.com/landscape. Oh, I can't see it anymore. I'm covering my own screen there with my own face. But anyway, you can see at that website the program details. There's also a funding estimation calculator and an application form. So you could go in there and say, okay, let's say I've got 5,000 square feet of grass. If I change that all to some other kind of planting, then I can see how much money I could potentially qualify for. So, and the process for this is you apply, review the plans and make any recommended changes if we see any. Then we sign a contract, or well, just an agreement, and then you construct it, put it together, and once it's done, contact us. We come do a site visit, take some measurements, and then do a payment based off of that. So that's how that program works. Just wanted to show some examples of who's been doing this. This is the Doug Smith Subaru in American Fork. So they were expanding. They had already done a bunch of turf removal before we started this program. So they already had lots of rock shrub areas like this, but they grew a little bit and expanded their property. And so they were adding more landscape to it. And so we helped fund some of that with this program. And you can kind of see what they got from that. This was March, so everything looks dead. It's not dead, it's just dormant. But that's what that looks like, because, you know, a car dealership is not the first place you think about having landscaping, but they did. They had grass there. And they still have one little section of grass because Doug Smith knows that Subaru owners have dogs. And so he wanted to keep a little section of grass for those dogs. And that's nice of him. Okay, Holiday Oil in Spanish Fork. Holiday Oil has been doing a tremendous job of switching out their landscaping, or more like as they build new ones, they don't put much lawn in there because they've actually found it to be beneficial to them as well. So this is just one of the bigger ones that we did out in Spanish Fork along Highway 6. You can see the estimated water savings there. Again, a gas station isn't a place you think of that has landscaping, but of course, all these places do. And I don't think I really appreciated it till I saw a different gas station out in Saratoga Springs, kind of on the hill with surrounded by all the sagebrush out there and everything. And then it had just these immense lawns at a gas station in the middle of the desert on a slope that I was like, oh, I really appreciate what Holiday Oil is doing, because it makes so much more sense than to try to put this grass out there. So just some shots of that. And they do have some grass there, but they reduced the size greatly by what they would have normally put there. And then this is a townhome, newly built townhome area out in Lehigh. And instead of putting grass everywhere, they did these kind of plantings. And this may not be your cup of tea. It doesn't have to be rock. It could also be bark mulch. A lot of places choose to do rock because it tends to last longer and not blow away, that type of thing. But just so you know, that there were lawn areas. You can see way in the back there, and I'll come over to the back side there. So some common areas where you could use some lawn space there. But in this park strip right here, really nice to not have lawn right there. Okay. And I'm just trying to check the time here. I didn't time myself on this, so I may be long-winded or short-winded, not sure.
You got 20 more minutes. You're good.
Okay. So we also offer a commercial smart controller rebate. I don't know if who's familiar with smart controllers, but basically these are controllers that are connected to some kind of weather-based system, whether that's a satellite or an actual weather station or a combination or soil moisture. Anyway, and so you kind of do the initial setup of this, input the data to say what type of soil, is it on a slope, what plant material is it, all that kind of information, and it figures out where you are, and then it's supposed to take over the watering and do it for you. And it does take some tweaking. Not everybody who has one of these saves water, because you have to tweak it a little bit, or it might not work quite right. But a lot of businesses are starting to put these in. So we've got a grant program for that, where we'll pay up to half, up to $1,500 for one of these, because the commercial ones do cost a lot of money. And then other grants that we provide for cities and other water providers, just so you know, is metering, because not every city is metered. Anyway, you can read through these. AMI, that's the advanced meter infrastructure that kind of some people are skeptical of, because it basically tells you your water use in real time, but also tells your water provider your water use in real time. Some people don't want them to know when they're in the shower, that type of thing. But anyway, but it can be very beneficial. Like if you're one of our engineers here, put one of these in at his house, and he was on vacation. Nobody was at his house, but he could look on his phone. It was connected to his phone, and it was telling him that he was using water. And so he knew right away that he had a leak. And when he got home, he got that leak fixed. So it helps catch leaks and things like that as well. Anyway, that's the type of stuff that we offer to cities. And we also offer large scale smart controller grants. So this would be more for like, I know University of Utah has put on multiple of these smart controllers, but we also, cities can provide these. Well, I got a couple examples here of how this could work. So Spanish Fork City, and I haven't updated this for this year, but they've done over 3,000 controllers for residents. So they provide these controllers to the residents, and I believe it's free of charge to the residents, and we help fund this program. So the city installs these smart controllers, and then they can help lower the peak demand, because everybody tends to want to water all at the same time, and it creates issues. And so they can, the city, if the homeowner gives them permission, and I think you have to do that when you first sign on, whether you do or not, you decide that at that time, but then they can kind of change when you water so that it kind of spreads it out a little bit. So not everybody's trying to use water at the same time. And with this program, they've been able to, what Spanish Fork has reported to us is that 7 homes with the controller, using the controller, provide for 1 more additional home in the water savings that they're seeing, which is awesome. So that's one way that will help fund the city. Sandy City has been installing these smart controllers on their city properties, and it's really been a benefit to them because they've got a central control. Like, you just go to your computer or even your phone and can mess with the controller at any of these properties instead of having to drive around to every individual property to work on it. You can do it right from your office. But also, if you have to go out to one to find a problem, you can just stand wherever and turn it on from your phone instead of having to go to the controller that may not be close to where you need to be to look at the sprinklers. And then they're seeing water savings, and they're getting less complaints from residents who are like, hey, your water's on during a rainstorm, or whatever people like to complain about. So that's been beneficial to the city and also been saving water for them. The LDS Church has been, they've got lots of properties throughout Utah County and Salt Lake County, of course. So they've been switching out to these smart controllers. I don't have the 2021 numbers, but you can see that they're saving millions of gallons of water by switching over to these weather-based smart controllers, millions of gallons. So I know they want to put more of these in too, and it's just, we only have a set amount of money that we can contribute to this each year. So it's hard to do too many at a time, but amazing at the water savings you can get. So for home builders, there's also a program for new homes that are being built, where if they install, a lot of home builders now install at least the front landscape for the homeowner. And they try to just do kind of the cheapest job, slap down some sod and be done with it. But we're trying to encourage them to do something a little more water efficient, reduce the amount of grass they put in there, and we'll pay them up front kind of the price difference, more or less, so that we can get water efficient landscapes from the very beginning, so we don't have to try to convince a homeowner down the road to switch it out. So that's some examples of what those look like. And they're not, they're not all dry, they're just reducing the amount of grass. And you can see in the park strip again, we just love to keep the grass out of the park strip. So for residents, if you guys live in your own home, you could do one of these things, flip your strip. That's programs that we just started this past year, where if you do have lawn in your park strip area and you want to get rid of that lawn, then we will help fund that as well. And if you, I think it's $1 per square foot, or if you attend our Waterwise Park Strip class, then we'll give you $1.25 per square foot. You have to replace it with plant material. It can't just be concrete or rock. It's got to have at least 50% plant coverage. And so there's that one. And then we also have what we call Localscapes Rewards. Localscapes is the program that we use to teach landscaping, water efficient landscaping. And if you want to implement that type of landscaping, we will help fund that. And again, it's not going to cover the cost. For maybe a quarter acre lot that's doing their front and backyard, you might get around $2,000, but it's going to cost a lot more than that to do it. But we're just trying to kind of help and encourage people to do that. And in order to get that discount or that rebate, then you do need to take one of our local scapes classes, which are free. And then you can also, like, we do live classes right now. They're just online, but they're live, so you can interact. But you could also go to the localscapes.com website, excuse me, and just go watch a pre-recorded version of the class at your leisure, and it's free as well. So we're trying to get the word out there about water efficient landscaping and where we can make the biggest difference. And then just 2 more programs here that the state is offering in conjunction with the water districts. But you know, these are programs that used to be run by water districts, but you know, water district will only offer it in their service area. So there were some people who just were not ever going to qualify for this because they weren't under a water district that was doing this. So now the state took over the program, so you can get a rebate for upgrading your toilet to a water efficient one. But you can see that it's only from 1993 or earlier. Reason being that after 1993, all toilets on the market were low flow. And so there's no point in replacing those ones. I mean, if you have to replace it because it's broken, sure, but we're not going to pay you for that because you're already using a low flow toilet, and all you can buy is a low flow toilet. So that's just a flat rate of $100, up to 2 toilets per property for a residential. And then there's also the smart controller, residential smart controller rebate. So that's a flat rate of $75 right now. And that's anybody in the state can qualify for this, as long as you haven't replaced. If you bought a smart controller within the last 5 years and got a rebate, then you can't do that again. You have to wait at least 5 years, but you shouldn't be needing to get a new one already anyway. So 1 controller per residential property. And so those are the programs that we use to encourage people to save water. And we've kind of talked about why that's important. I think that's my last slide there, besides my contact information. So if there's questions, I'd be happy to take those. If I don't have the answer, I can maybe direct you to the right person.
We have 2 questions that came in the chat for you, Casey. I'm going to scroll up to the top one. One was, the question was, do you send water down to, do you sell water down to Arizona? Any of our water out of the Central Utah Water Conservation District, does that get sent down to Arizona?
To my knowledge, we as a water district are only providing water within our service area. So we do not. Does water go down the Colorado River to Arizona? Yes, but that's not
you.
Us.
Okay, the second question was, which I think is interesting, what do you do with what you grow in your grow boxes? What do you grow in those?
So that is a fair question. And because when we had a demonstration garden, you know, that was really for people to come and see and get an idea of how you can grow vegetables in a small area, you know, and not have to use a ton of water because it's a small area and you cram a bunch in there and just water it with drip. So naturally I wanted to bring those with us, because I thought, well, we can do something here too, but turns out that this property here is not really conducive to a demonstration garden. We have a lot more parking lot and a lot more slope and a couple of detention basins. So there's not really a lot of area. Plus we have deer that regularly, you know, they basically live here. And so it would be tricky to put a demonstration garden right here. So even bringing those boxes, I realized, like, oh, we're growing vegetables. Now what do we do? We used to feed it, you know, bring it into our break room. And so that's what we do here sometimes too. But I've actually, so USU Extension, the Utah County Extension, moved into our building here with us. And so I'm letting them take over those grow boxes. So we had already planted them up last year when they came to us and said, hey, can we put grow boxes on the property? And we're like, we already have them. Why don't you use ours? So I gave them, yeah, because ours didn't have a purpose. So I gave them one of ours. And then this year I've told them they could have all three if they want. I'm not sure what they're going to do, but they use it for 4-H. And I think that's a good use of those grow boxes because, yeah, the last 2 years we haven't really had anybody coming to our property because of the pandemic. So
Yeah.
it seemed kind of pointless to have them, but I didn't want to just give them up. And I learned from them. So I even put some at my own house now.
Let's see, we have another question. I just lost it. Sorry. One question that came from the chat is, do you build the reservoirs, and do you know if there'll be more reservoirs built as the population increases and the water demand increases?
There's a lot of entities that are involved with building dams. So I don't know who's exactly in charge of what. We're definitely involved, but usually those are federal, federal facilities. And so the Bureau of Reclamation is involved with that too. So we probably aren't the builders as much as the managers of those federal facilities. And I don't really foresee any new dams coming anytime soon in this part of Utah. Okay. So there are two that you've probably heard of, at least the Lake Powell pipeline. That's very controversial, and that's basically what it is. Yeah. That it's so controversial anymore that it's going to be hard to ever build something like that. I don't know what's going to happen there, and I'm not going to get all political about that. But that's one of them, the Lake Powell pipeline to bring water to Wasatch County, and then somewhere up in northern Utah, they'd like to put another reservoir. Where that's going to be, it's going to be north of the Great Salt Lake, I think, but nobody's.
Somewhere Bear Lake.
Yeah, yeah, over by Tree Mountain. I don't know, and I don't know what's happening. Yeah,
the middle of Rich County.
But the Great Salt Lake is already so dry. It seems like it's going to be hard to justify that as well.
Yeah.
So that's all that I'm aware of that are out there. Okay. Whether they happen or not, who knows?
We have another question, and I don't know if you can answer this, but we'll throw it out. Do you have a list of landscapers or landscape designers, architects who are available to do consultations or actual work? Are you a resource for that people could get a hold of you or somebody there and say, hey, here's Fred, or here's somebody that you could recommend?
So because we're government, we can't pick any favorites.
Right.
But there's two websites that I could send you to. There is a certification. It came out of California, but we've adopted that in Utah. It's called the Qualified Water Efficient Landscaper Certification. So QWEL.net is the website. Is it .net or .com? I think it's .net. But anyway, Qualified Water Efficient Landscaper. If you go on that website, and there's a place that you can look for somebody to hire and type in your zip code, and it will bring up people that have been Quell certified within like 25 miles from where you are or something like that. Not all of them are for hire. So if they work for a city or some kind of government entity, then don't contact them because they're not going to be for hire. But you can see that some of them are a design business. So those are ones that are qualified water efficient landscapers. And then the other one is the localscapes.com website. So localscapes.com.
All one word, right?
Yep. Like landscapes, but localscapes.com. And scroll down on the homepage till you come to the list of partners. And again, not everybody there is for hire because we are there as a water conservancy district. But you can filter through that and you can say, okay, click on the design tab, and then all the designers for hire will pop up, and then you can click on those to find to be taken to their websites and get their contact information and see what areas they cover, that type of thing.
Okay.
So that's what I can send you to.
Great. Here's a drought question that we have on the chat. One of your early slides showed how much was water use was used for agriculture and that. And the question is the drought serious enough to potentially have to pay alfalfa farmers to stop growing? Isn't agriculture the biggest water user? And I would put a / waste. I know it's an opinion question, but
yeah.
is it worthwhile to tell the alfalfa growers not to grow?
That's probably beyond my scope of understanding. I don't really deal with the agriculture side of things, and
Okay.
I didn't address that at all. So what I showed was just the water use with the kind of the city water use.
You showed the spread on it, which was helpful.
Yeah, and it shows, residential and business and factory type of water use. It didn't cover agriculture at all, but yes, that is the biggest use of water in the state. And if you remember back to where the chart that shows kind of each region of the state having a different goal of water reduction, it's because some counties, I wonder, well, it's way back there, but some counties have a lot fewer people, but a lot higher water use because of that agriculture. And so they're up in the 300 gallons per capita per day, but that's not comparing apples to apples. So that's not fair. And
okay. All right.
The alfalfa thing, that I don't know. You can decide on that, what you think. I don't necessarily have an opinion of what's considered useful or not, but we obviously think that fruit trees, that kind, like Santaquin, that's a good use of water. But alfalfa growers, I don't know. That's
okay. Here's another one for you. The question a lot of people have is, do we want to go xeriscaping or zeroscaping? Would you like to give a definition of 3?
Yeah. So
water conservation, xeriscaping, and then zeroscaping, because they're different.
You may have noticed that I never used any of those terms. We call it what it is, which is water efficient landscaping. And our term is kind of a local scape, because that term xeriscape has kind of gained a negative connotation. That came from Colorado as a XERI, xeriscape, meaning dry landscaping. And it's really just following 7 principles, and it doesn't necessarily have to look like the super dry cactus, Las Vegas look or whatever. So what we had at our demonstration garden was considered xeriscaping, but even there we didn't call it that. We called it water efficient landscaping, because people do hear it as zeroscaping and think that there's no landscape there. So that's a xeriscape doesn't necessarily have to look dry. A zeroscape, well, obviously, yeah, it's dry because there's no water, there's no plants. I don't know. Do you have anything to add to that, Dave?
No, I appreciate that, because that's what I hear as a landscape designer, and as I help neighbors, they go, oh, I'm just going to tear out my lawn and I'm going to go xeriscaping. Like, oh, what are you going to put in? Rock. Any plants? No, rock. And the first thing I think of is, okay, you got a heat sink right there, because that's going to reflect the heat, and that's just not going to help you as far as energy conservation. But anyway.
Yeah, there are some benefits to grass, and with the whole local scape concept, everything centers around a designed central open shape, which is, if you're going to have grass, that's what that is. It doesn't have to be grass, but that's where your grass would go. Because what we tend to do here in Utah is, okay, let's kind of imagine that there's grass everywhere, and now we cut the shrub beds out of that grass. And so you end up with really wonky grass shapes that are tough to water efficiently. But we're saying, no, design the shape of the lawn. The planting beds can be whatever shape, it doesn't matter. You're watering them with drip, so the water's getting right to the source, but we need to think about how we're watering with our sprinklers. and keep that size, the lawn size, down to a manageable, usable space.
I appreciate that. I think we're running close to time. One last question for you, and then I'm just going to be quiet and let you do the final. Is water let out of the reservoirs each spring, anticipating more rainfall and snow melt?
So
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that one, dude.
well, again, that's not my area of expertise, but my understanding of it is that, so sometimes, yes, like we as a water district are watching all those levels of all the reservoirs up the way and the snowpack and the temperatures. The people who do that, kudos to them. So sometimes, yes, they have to let water out because they're anticipating the water that's going to be melting and coming down, and we can't have our reservoirs overflowing, right? So we're trying to balance everything and make it right. Sometimes it might be in the middle of the summer where you're like, wow, there sure is a lot of water coming down the river right now. It seems like there shouldn't be that much coming down, but it's because we're letting shares down to, you know, a city or some other water district has asked us for some more water shares. Maybe I'm using the wrong term, but we're sending water down to them to fill in, you know, so we're sending water to a city or to somebody.
Appreciate that. Anybody have any open questions for Casey? We're running close to our time. Casey, again, I appreciate you coming.
Oh yeah, we are out of time. It's 2 o'clock, 2:01. So yeah, I appreciate you having me. Sorry I didn't make it in person, but hopefully this did okay.
Well, on behalf of ElderQuest, I want to thank you for sharing your information and your resources with us. One thing you need to everybody remember, you see Casey's email address and his phone number. He is a plant nerd, and I'm going to tell everybody that's capital P and capital N, because I've attended many of his webinars and his workshops that he's held, both in live and there, and it's great. So just realize he's a resource for you. Cynthia says to everybody, I've taken several local scape plants with Casey. They were great. So there you have an unsolicited recommendation, Casey, for you to put on your resume as you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I think we're done.
Awesome.
Thank you, Casey. This is Gerhard in the classroom. You're getting a bunch of claps here from the 10 of us that were in attendance in the classroom.
Oh, good. Wonderful.
Thank you. It's just such an important topic. I moved from California and I was shocked at how much grass, because we live with drought in California all the time.
Yeah.
And how much grass was planted here. And so I've been working really hard, took your classes, and we've converted a whole bunch of our yard. We're still working on it. I've got to deal with some sprinklers this spring, but yeah, I feel passionate about it too, because we just can't predict the weather. We just have to conserve. It's always in my brain, conserve.
And I like Casey's comment of, remember, plants grow, because I see so many people that put a blue spruce within 3 feet of their sidewalk.
Yeah.
And it looks beautiful right now. Or they put an arborvitae right next to the corner of the house. It's pretty. It's only 3 feet tall. And then, yes, trees and shrubs grow, people. They change in size. So thank you for that information, Casey. Do appreciate it.
Yep, you bet.
I was going to say, we went up last year to the South Jordan Water District, Conservancy District, and they have a beautiful gardens that you can walk through. And they're all a demonstration with plantings. It's huge and beautiful. So if anybody hasn't walked up there, it's free. You can go, and that was really awesome too. Maybe
we ought to look at it as a day trip for ElderQuest.
There you go. I would highly recommend it. Not in the summer because it's pretty hot, but if you could go in the spring or fall, well, spring would be good, wouldn't it, Casey? It was gorgeous, and all these paths that you can just walk through and get ideas. So that'd be a really good one too.
They actually have a local scape house demonstration now too, kind of a 1/4 acre set aside with the house structure in there, so you can kind of envision what that looks like.
Yeah, that'd be a great day trip. Thank you. Always good. And I live right here. I'm probably the closest to the water district here in Orem. I literally live at the base of that hill. So I just keep thinking, you know, I'm sure they're earthquake safe, right? Because our house is right at the bottom of those, at the mouth of Provo Canyon. So, and I know Orem, isn't Orem putting in like a big 10 billion gallon, they're going to bury a big drum someplace for water storage soon?
Yes. Fourth and fourth.
Yeah. So it's always on our minds. Thank you.
Just one last question. Wasn't there something in the news last week about how the aged aqueduct running down the Wasatch Front that was built in the 1940s is definitely not earthquake proof? If there were a big one, the aqueduct that we're getting for the entire Wasatch Front is highly at risk.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, but it wouldn't surprise me. I know that a lot of our water infrastructure is older than 50 years and needs some help. So that may be part of that. You know, people whine and complain about streets because they can see when there's a pothole or when we need to widen a street, but we don't see the water infrastructure usually. And so it's hard to know to complain about that because we could have slow leaks and just not even know that it's there.
And is there a ground cover that's evergreen that doesn't take a lot of water? Better than grass?
Like a lawn replacement?
Yes, like vinca or some kind of evergreen ground cover that wouldn't require as much water.
Yeah, I wouldn't do vinca personally, but you could look at some of the creeping veronicas, like Turkish veronica, and that can grow in sun and part shade.
And evergreen too. Wow.
Evergreen-ish. I've got some in my yard, and you know, it doesn't lose all its leaves, or it kind of changes color a little bit in the winter and revives.
Thank you.
Well, with that being the case, I think we're done.
Okay.
Appreciate you, Casey, again.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. We'll see ya.
Guess I should tell Gerhard he can stop recording now.
Dave Wilson, this is Claire.
Hi, Claire.
Hi, are you a landscaper?
I've done landscape design in the past. I'm a master gardener.
I am in giant need. I'd love to keep my home. The yard is doing me in. I don't have the ability to maintain it like I want to. The weeding is almost over what I can handle because my knees are wearing out. My husband cannot go out into the yard or he'll fall and he'll be in a wheelchair the rest of his life.
Oh, goodness.
But I need some giant help. I've had necrotic ring spot fungus, and it has killed out several spaces on the front of my lawn. I'm looking like a shabby stepchild to the neighborhood, and I'd like to resurrect my yard. If you have suggestion, come.
Okay, I would get in touch with those websites that Casey talked about, the local scapes.
All right.
And just let them know, hey, I'm curious what you guys could do for me. And as I tell anybody that's getting anything out in the free market system, always get bids, get it in writing, let them know that you're tearing and comparing so that you don't get taken to the cleaners from anybody. You want to make sure that you get the best bang for your buck any way you look at it.
Okay, great.
So that's what I would do. And like I said, let people know that you're getting bids. And then I ask neighbors in your church group or in bingo or and Elder Quest meetings, luncheons. Who's done do you have somebody that does your lawn and does your yard? Who do you recommend? Because it's always good to talk to people that know what's going on or have had that done to their yard, because they may say, oh no, don't do this, or oh hey, try this, back and forth. So that might help you, Claire.
Great. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that.
All righty.
Thank you.
Not a problem, young lady.
This was excellent. I'm sorry he didn't shake his proverbial finger at all of us and tell us to slow the flow on our showers and our brushing our teeth and all of that, because I'm sure every drop really helps.
Well, you know what? His thing at the end, the toilet replacement rebate's a smart thing. And you can tell how old your toilet is by lifting the lid up. You know, take whatever plants or stuff you got on top, lift the lid up and look inside your tank. It has a date stamped in the tank of when your toilet was made.
Great. That's
So
what
if
we
you-
need to know.
So if you're questioning when your toilet was made, you can look at that and say, oh my goodness, I do have an old toilet. Or, oh, I don't have one. So that's just can help.
Terrific. This was excellent. Delighted you had him share.
Not me. This is Ruth's doing. Ruth
well,
was able, Ruth and Margie,
Really appreciate this information. Thank you.
you betcha.